The art of losing is not what it sounds like. It is not surrender. It is not weakness. It is not waving a white flag in the wind of disappointment. It is learning to release what you cannot control, to unclench your fists from the things you thought were yours to keep, and somehow still stand with dignity when they walk away. Losing is not just about what is taken. It's about what it reveals, who you are without the title, without the relationship, without the applause. Without the safety net, you find out what stays when everything else goes, and that knowing that raw, stripped-down truth is a kind of freedom no wind could ever offer, because what you lose might leave you emptier, but emptiness makes room for clarity, for peace, for the power of becoming. Losing teaches you how to hold things gently, how to love without gripping, how to trust the flow of time without forcing your own script. Loss is an initiation, a holy breaking. It strips away the noise so you can hear what actually matters. It humbles you in ways success never will. Yes, it hurts, and no, it's not always fair, but sometimes the things you lose were never meant to be your forever. So, grieve what you must, feel it fully, but don't confuse losing with being lost. You're still here, still breathing, still becoming, and that is an art all its own. Losing is not defeat. It may feel like the end. It may echo like failure in the hollows of your chest, but it is not weakness. It is a refining fire, a sacred unraveling that reveals what is solid beneath the surface. The world tells you to win at all costs, to always hold on, to never let them see you fall. But real strength is not found in clinging. It's found in surrender, not the kind of surrender that gives up, but the kind that lets go, that steps back and says, I will not be defined by this moment. Because loss, when you allow it, becomes a mirror. It shows you what truly matters, what you actually need, and what was only ever weighing you down. It sharpens your vision. It teaches you to breathe through the silence, to stand still in the unknown, to stop chasing what was never yours to begin with. Losing reveals your resilience. It uncovers your ability to rise without applause, to begin again without the comfort of certainty. It strips you of illusion, but never of worth. It takes what was never permanent and gives back what is eternal. You start to see that what felt like ruin was actually rebirth. You begin to understand that what broke you also opened you to feel more, to trust deeper, to become wiser. So no, losing is not defeat. It is a classroom. It is a turning point. It is a painful, powerful teacher that reminds you who you are when the noise quiets down and the masks fall off. And in that place, raw and real and still standing, you find a strength that cannot be shaken. Letting go is strength. Not the kind of strength that clenches its fists, but the kind that opens its hands. It's not loud or forceful. It's quiet, resolute, unshakable. Real power doesn't always come from holding on. Sometimes it comes from the courage to release. To say, this is not mine to carry anymore. To accept that you cannot fix what does not want to be fixed. That you cannot force clarity from chaos. Letting go is not giving up. It's choosing peace over pressure. It's choosing your sanity over someone else's silence. It's the moment you stop chasing things that run from you. The moment you stop negotiating with your own worth. There is a quiet kind of freedom in that release. A soft unraveling of everything you thought you had to control. We spend so much energy trying to hold it all together, the relationship, the plan, the perfect image. But what if the strength was never in holding tight, but in the willingness to trust what happens when you let go? When you stop micromanaging every outcome, when you stop begging doors to open that were never meant for you, there's something sacred about surrender. It says you trust the unfolding, even when it doesn't look like what you hoped for. It says you believe life is not against you even when it hurts. Letting go doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you cared enough to not lose yourself in the process. It means you chose yourself, your peace, your future. Real power lies in knowing what's yours to hold and what isn't, in knowing the difference between effort and control, in recognizing when it's time to walk away, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. Letting go is strength, because it takes everything in you to stop clinging to what's crumbling, and everything in you to believe that what's ahead might just be better than what you're leaving behind. Loss reveals identity. Not the one you present to the world, not the one shaped by titles, roles, or recognition, but the deeper self, the one that remains when all else is stripped away. We build our lives around what we own, who we love, where we belong, and how the world sees us. But when loss comes, as it inevitably does, it pulls those layers back, and what's left is you, the raw, unadorned version, the one who exists without the job, without the relationship, without the applause. It's in that empty space that identity is no longer constructed but uncovered. Loss removes the distractions. It silences the noise. It forces you to face yourself without the mirrors of others. And at first, that can feel unbearable. Because we are taught to define ourselves by what we have, by how we perform, by what others approve of, but those things can disappear, they often do, and when they do, you get to ask the question most people avoid: who am I now? Who am I without the role I played, without the name they called me, without the identity I borrowed to feel safe? It's in that moment, in the stillness after the storm, that the real you starts to speak. Not the you who was trying to prove something, not the you who was performing for validation, but the you who knows how to sit in silence and still feel whole, the you who remembers your worth was never tied to what you did, or what you had, or who stayed. Loss can break your heart, but it can also rebuild your soul. It teaches you what's essential. It teaches you what lasts. It teaches you that identity isn't what you hold onto, it's what holds you when everything else is gone. There's clarity in emptiness, not in the chaos of having everything, but in the quiet after losing something that once filled your world. We spend so much of life accumulating things, titles, people, distractions. We chase fullness. We fear empty space. But sometimes it's in the emptiness that we finally hear what's been waiting beneath the noise. When the room clears, when the voices fade, when the plans fall through, something shifts. Suddenly, what truly matters rises to the surface, the clutter is gone, the pretending fades, and you're left with what's real. Loss feels like absence, but within that absence, there is room for awareness. Room for honesty, room for peace. We don't often choose emptiness, but life knows when we need it, when the weight we carry is no longer helping us grow, when the noise we cling to is drowning out our own truth. It's in the quiet that truth speaks. It's in the stillness that we remember what we forgot. That peace doesn't come from more. That happiness isn't hiding in the next thing. That growth doesn't always feel like progress. Sometimes it feels like release. Emptiness isn't failure, it's an invitation to go deeper, to slow down, to rediscover. When something leaves your life, you learn to ask different questions. You stop asking how to get more and start asking who you really are. You stop reaching outward and begin returning inward. In that space, you don't have to prove anything, you just have to be, and in being, you begin to see with new eyes. You notice beauty you used to miss. You hear your own voice again, you feel your own heartbeat. Emptiness doesn't mean nothing is left. It means there's room now for truth, for peace, for growth. Hold life gently, because nothing is permanent. Not the seasons, not the people, not even the versions of yourself that feel so certain today. Everything is shifting, everything is moving, and when we try to grip too tightly, we end up breaking what we meant to protect. We are taught to chase, to claim, to hold on for dear life, but life was never meant to be clenched in fists. It was meant to be cradled with open hands. The tighter you hold, the more it slips through your fingers. The more you try to possess love, the more you lose its freedom. Love thrives in space, not in pressure. People are not possessions. Moments are not meant to be frozen. Memories are not cages. To hold life gently is to embrace the beauty of now without demanding it stay the same forever. It means loving someone for who they are, not who you need them to be. It means letting go when the time comes, not out of weakness, but out of grace. It means dancing with the moment instead of trying to own it. When we cling, we suffer, because change is certain, and resistance only breeds pain. But when we loosen our grip, when we breathe into the flow of life, something softens, we begin to trust, we begin to allow. And in that allowing, we experience love more deeply, not because we held on, but because we allowed it to be what it was. Some things aren't meant to last forever. Some things are meant to teach, to stretch us, to leave gently. And when they do, our hands, though empty, are still open, ready to receive again, to hold gently again, to love again, not with fear, but with freedom, because life is not a possession, it is a gift, and all gifts are meant to be held with care, not control. Loss is an initiation, not just an ending, but a threshold, a sacred breaking that doesn't leave you where it found you. It shatters the old patterns, it dissolves illusions, it disrupts the comfort you thought you needed. And though it hurts, though it tears through everything familiar, it clears a path to something deeper. You can't rush through it. You can't patch it up with distractions, because loss demands presence. It asks you to sit with the ache, to listen to what your soul whispers when everything else goes quiet. It's not just about what you've lost, it's about what's being revealed. Loss strips away what no longer serves your becoming. It peels back the layers of identity, of expectation, of attachment. And in that raw, vulnerable place, you begin to remember who you are underneath it all. Loss doesn't come to punish, it comes to awaken. It pulls you out of autopilot, it confronts you with the truth you've been avoiding. It breaks your heart open so that more light can get in. The deeper things, wisdom, compassion, inner strength, they're often born in the moments we wish never came. When you lose something you thought you couldn't live without, you discover the parts of you that were never dependent on it. That's where the initiation begins. You walk through fire, but you walk through transformed. You begin to ask better questions. You begin to live more honestly. You stop chasing what doesn't align and start honoring what feels real. Loss will change you, it's meant to. But the change isn't destruction, it's a doorway. A movement from surface to soul, from grasping to grace. It's a reminder that the pain you feel isn't where your story ends. It's where a deeper story begins. Pain is part of the process, not an interruption. Not a detour, but a necessary passage. We live in a world that rushes to escape pain. It tells us to numb, to distract, to move on quickly. But healing doesn't happen in avoidance. It happens in the allowing. Grief is not weakness. Tears are not failure. They are the body's way of saying, this mattered. What you lost mattered. What you feel is valid. Pain isn't something to be ashamed of. It's evidence that you showed up fully, that you loved deeply, that you hoped sincerely. And when loss comes, grief becomes the bridge between what was and what will be. If you try to skip over it, you don't truly move forward. You just carry the wound, hidden but unhealed. Pain invites you to slow down, to sit with your heart, to feel the edges of what's been broken, and in doing so, you start to release, not forget, not erase, but soften. Pain teaches you presence, it strips away the noise, it reveals what matters most. And though it feels heavy, it is not endless. Grief changes shape. It becomes quieter, more spacious, but only if you let it speak, only if you give it room. The deepest healing doesn't come through pretending. It comes through honesty, through feeling what's real without rushing to fix it. Pain is the body's signal that something sacred has shifted. It's not your enemy, it's part of your becoming. You are not broken for feeling it. You are human, you are alive, and you are healing, little by little, moment by moment. So let the pain rise. Let it move through you, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Healing begins when we stop hiding from the ache and start listening to what it came to teach. Not all losses are wrong. Sometimes the things that leave were never meant to stay. They came with a purpose, a season, a lesson, not a lifetime. We hold on because we think letting go is failure. We mourn endings because we were taught that permanence equals value. But life doesn't always move in straight lines, and not everything that begins is meant to last forever. Some things are chapters, not the whole story. Some people are bridges, not destinations, and some dreams are meant to shape us, not to stay with us. It doesn't mean it was a mistake. It doesn't mean you were wrong to care, to hope, to build. It just means the story is evolving, and sometimes growth requires release. It's hard to understand in the moment when the absence feels so loud, when the familiar is suddenly gone. But with time, clarity arrives. You begin to see how holding on was costing you peace, how staying was shrinking your soul, how the version of you in that place was ready to be undone. Loss clears space, even when it feels cruel. It removes what was keeping you stuck, even when you thought it was security. And in that clearing, you begin to rebuild not from what was, but from who you are now. Sometimes the leaving sets you free. Sometimes the end is the beginning you didn't know you needed. The person who left, the job that fell through, the plan that unraveled, they were never your forever. They were your becoming, so let yourself grieve, but don't mistake the loss for a wrong turn. You are not off course. You are just being rerouted towards something truer. Towards something that won't require you to shrink, to settle, to sacrifice your truth to belong. Not all losses are wrong. Some are necessary. Some are sacred. Some are the only way you'll find the life you were actually meant to live. Losing does not mean you are lost. It may feel like everything is slipping away. Like the ground beneath you isn't steady anymore. Like who you were is no longer clear. But even in the middle of the unraveling, your essence remains. The core of who you are, untouched by titles, unshaken by outcomes, unmoved by what others take or leave. You may have lost the job, you may have lost the person, you may have lost the path you thought you were meant to walk, but you haven't lost you. Your strength, your spirit, your voice, they are still there, waiting beneath the weight of grief. You are not defined by what you've had to release. You are not erased by the pain of change. Loss can cloud your vision, but it cannot take your soul. And though it may take time to find your footing again, know this: your foundation runs deeper than circumstance. You were never meant to stay the same. Change was always going to come. But change doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're evolving. There's a version of you that only shows up in the absence of certainty. A version that knows how to rebuild, to reimagine, to rise again. You are not lost. You are in transition. You are walking through a sacred in-between. The fog will lift. The clarity will come. And when it does, you'll see you didn't lose yourself. You were just shedding what you no longer needed. So give yourself grace. You're allowed to feel disoriented. You're allowed to not have the answers right now. But never confuse this moment with a destination. You are still on the path, still becoming, still held by something greater than your fear. Losing does not mean you are lost. It means you are in motion towards something new, towards something more aligned, toward a deeper version of who you've always been. There's art in becoming. It's not a straight path. It's not clean or quick or predictable. Becoming is messy, it's layered, it's tender, and most of the time it begins with loss. Loss of what you thought you wanted, loss of who you thought you were, loss of the version of life you built around safety instead of truth. But every loss, no matter how painful, holds a lesson, a mirror, a chance to pause and ask, who am I now? Not the version others expect. Not the version you perform for approval, but the real you, the one buried beneath roles and routines, the one who rises from the ashes not to be who you were, but to be who you're meant to be. Becoming is not about finding yourself in the outside world. It's about returning to yourself, to your values, to your voice, to your center. It happens quietly, in the moments when you let go of what no longer fits, in the silence after the door closes, in the stillness of being stripped bare. And from that emptiness, you begin to shape something new. You begin to rebuild not by copying the past, but by honoring what's true now. There's creativity in becoming. There's design in the detour. You are forming something beautiful not in spite of the pain, but because of it. Every loss chisels away what you're not, so what remains is real. Every ending clears space for something honest to emerge. You're not starting over. You're starting deeper, more aware, more open, more aligned. This is the art of becoming, not rushing to replace what's gone, but learning to breathe in the space it left behind. To trust the process, even when it feels like undoing, because all great art requires patience, requires risk, requires surrender, and you are a masterpiece still in progress. So if you've lost something or someone, or some version of yourself, know this: you are not broken. You are becoming. Every unraveling is making space for something truer, something wiser, something more aligned with who you really are. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to keep going. Keep breathing, keep trusting, keep becoming, because in the end, what feels like the falling apart is often the beginning of falling into place.